Thanks for tuning in today. We are going to be showing you how to make a DIY vertical jump tester for just around 50 bucks. We had a ton of questions on how we made our homemade vertical jump tester. For anybody familiar, a Vertec costs hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I work with student athletes, so I was looking for a more cost-effective way that I can measure their vertical jumps. So I watched some YouTube videos here, came up with my own little technique and ideas, and I'm going to walk you through what I did. So for the main body, I used 1-inch PVC pipe. For the actual rods, I used 1/2 inch. In between, I used 1/4 inch nuts, which makes, if you did the math there, each knob is 1 inch. So it's easy for me to measure how high an athlete would be jumping. Now for the middle part, I used just a 5/16 threaded rod, and that allowed me to attach the nuts in between each of the PVC rods. And then at the top and bottom, I have a wing nut just to secure it all in place. Now you don't have to use the same things that I did. You could obviously play around with it a little bit more. The biggest thing here for me was that I wanted it to be in 1-inch increments. So figuring out using the 1/2 inch PVC pipe with the 1/4 inch nuts, that allowed me to do that. And then the biggest other problem I had was how to attach it to my wall in my garage. So I'm going to walk you through what I did for that as well. Okay, for this project, you are going to need a power drill. I use a circular saw. You could use any type of saw as long as you get nice clean cuts. 1/2 inch PVC pipes for the rods to hit. I used 1-inch PVC pipe for the main body, and I used a 5/16 threaded rod for the main pipe going through. Nuts just to screw on in between. Hex nuts for each end just to secure in place. Other than the PVC pipes, you're going to need some 90-degree elbow joints to kind of stick it all together at the end. I recommend picking up 4 or 5 depending on how you're going to secure it to the wall. You're also going to need a few T-joints. I chose to use the ones that just slip in, and then at the very end I'm just going to glue it all together, or you could use rubber cement to kind of keep it all together, but that's a big piece so that it doesn't move around on you. I secured it to my wall with some metal flanges, and then at the very end I just have some PVC, some threaded PVC that screws right in, and that's how I'm going to attach it right to my wall. Cutting is by far the messiest part of this job. I recommend doing it somewhere that you don't mind getting a mess. The PVC shavings go everywhere. They look like little coconut shavings, so just make sure you're in a good spot, you don't mind if you get dirty, and clean up really great afterwards. So when you cut your pieces, you have a couple options here. The actual Vertec is made with smaller pieces at the bottom, and they get bigger as they go up. That's how I chose to design mine. You could honestly cut them all the same size. Definitely easier that way, but totally up to you. So after you cut them all to size, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to mark down where you're going to drill your hole for that middle rod. Now I chose to do 1 inch in. I felt like that gave me enough space where it wasn't going to crack the PVC, you know, and it still had enough room to move around. So just measure in 1 inch, make a little dot, line them all up. You want to make sure this is pretty exact, because if your rods are all different lengths and if the holes in a different spot are uneven, then it's going to it could change how the rod lays on the pipe itself or how it swings. So try to be as exact as possible. Now for your bit, whatever size your threaded rod is, I'd go just one size above that. That way it has a little bit of room to move around. You don't want it to be too tight, or else it's not going to be able to move freely, which is definitely what we want. So now, by far, the most boring and monotonous piece of this is sliding the rods on and screwing each nut into place. I'm going to recommend finding a good show and popping it on and just kind of taking your time as you do this. It takes a long time. Try to find a good technique. Played around with a couple things. You know, I ended up doing a few at a time. And the same thing, like I said, I was watching TV while I was doing it. It's going to take you about an hour or so to really get them all in place. But this does help to ensure that they stay in place and that they are evenly spaced out. Once you're all done screwing on your pieces, we're going to put the end cap on. So all I'm going to do, pop it on, and once it is in, I'm just going to push everything back into place. And we're going to take our wing nut and secure it to the top and tighten it all so that it's nice and locked in and it's not going to move around on us. And there you go. That's pretty much it for this one. I'm going to show you how I'm going to attach it in my garage next. Now, one tip I do have is that on the bottom of these of every piece, I put a number, 1 through whatever. Just that way, it's an easy way for me to track. You know, as an athlete's hitting it, or as I'm hitting it, I don't have to count each individual time. I could just look underneath it, see what the last number is, and it'll help me to measure a little bit quicker. Also, make sure you don't glue anything until you're all done and you've tested it out. Okay, if you want to make any changes and you've glued it all together, it's nearly impossible. You're going to have to start over again. So just wait till you're done, test it out, then glue it. All right, so I've already pre-measured where I'm going to attach these two. So I'm just putting the flanges up, making sure they're screwed in nice and tight, nice and even. And then from there, we'll put it up. Got all of our other pieces put up. We're just going to attach this last piece, make sure it's in there nice and tight, and then from there, once we're sure it's all exactly how we want it, we'll glue it into place. If you enjoyed this video, please let us know. Click subscribe, leave a comment, or send us a message. Let us know what you want to see more of. We'll be coming back with more DIY builds, product reviews, and workout tips.